Oh, so fabulous.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel once again. It's your girl Dumebi. If this is your first time coming across my channel, you're welcome. I do hope you decide to subscribe, and if you are a returning subscriber, you guys know that I love you. It's so good to have you here. Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the LGBTQ people, the African ones specifically, and what is happening to them in Canada. So just in case you don't know, some African countries have very strict anti-LGBTQ laws in their countries, which has made it basically unsafe for LGBTQ in these countries. So they are liable to persecution and in some cases even the death penalty. And I think the African country that got the most spotlight recently on their anti-LGBTQ laws is Uganda. There's also been Ghana, Nigeria, and some other countries that have these laws already in place. Just in case you don't really know much about that and you want to catch up, I have videos on it. They are on the screen. You can just go right ahead and watch those videos right after this one, and it will explain more about all the whole anti-LGBTQ laws that have been passed in these countries. So definitely when those laws were passed, it was obvious that there was definitely going to be an effect, some form of pushback and possibly attack on members of LGBTQ in those countries. So I'm just going to go right ahead and play some videos on the aftermath of these laws.
There's no hope, but where are we supposed to go? You don't want us in your country. You're not giving us jobs. You're not giving us education. You're not giving us medication. You are criminalizing people renting to us. Where do you want us to go? You are arresting us for literally doing nothing, for simply existing, you know? But where are we supposed to go? How did we become refugees in our own countries? This is bad news. It's not just for queer Ugandans, but for queer people across the African continent. Ghana has been literally on it for months as well. You know, Tanzania, Nigeria, all of these other countries that I'm also not mentioning. It's just like they have been waiting for this.
Meet the Girls, a group of about 15 queer people that live in a refugee camp just outside of Lilongwe in Malawi. They're constantly living in fear of their lives and normally hide away, moving from place to place at night to avoid being tracked. One of the girls didn't dare to meet us because her own mom has hired some local gangsters to kill her. The girls fall through the cracks of even the big help organizations that operate in the camp, most likely because of the religious beliefs of the people working on the ground. But there are a few heroes in the camp helping them, and after a few hours of searching and waiting, we met 9 of the girls in a safe location. We spent a few hours talking about the situation and what they would need to feel safe and supported. They're all homeless, moving from place to place, so what they need most is a safe compound where they could all live.
So of course, because of all those things that were happening to them, they felt unsafe, and the next course of action was to, you know, look for a way to be safe, right? Because if the countries are not going to permit them to live there peacefully and practice their sexuality, it's common sense that they will have to leave and look for somewhere that is more tolerant of LGBTQ. So this is where Canada steps in. The Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, actually made a statement which basically invited LGBTQ members who were seeking asylum to come into Canada as refugees. Let me go right ahead and play the video.
To celebrate freedom. Freedom to love, freedom to openly be who you are, and freedom from fear. Today, our government is incredibly proud to announce that we are partnering with Rainbow Railroad to protect 2 LGBTQI+ refugees and welcome them to Canada through the Government-Assisted Refugees Program. The organization that goes and that tells Canada, okay, you should take this person, you should take that person, and all they have to do is designate a person and that person gets to come to Canada as a supported refugee, gets huge amounts of support. What this organization has been able to do in terms of referring to us LGBTQI plus people from around the world to come to Canada to enrich our country immensely, to contribute to this beautiful, open, growing society has been incredibly valuable, not just to Canada for selfish reasons, because boy, we love to welcome the people you're sending us, but at the same time, because the work you're doing is so important around the world in showing that better is always possible, that there is a place where we stand with you, where we let you be who you are, love who you love, and be everything that you need to be. This is what Canada is. State-sponsored persecution is happening all over the world. Uganda's anti-homosexuality laws are reversing human rights, and it's because of laws like that that organizations like this are needed more than ever.
From that video, you can see that he outrightly gave an invitation for asylum to these African LGBTQ members, right? So obviously a lot of Africans jumped on that opportunity and started to seek asylum in Canada. And there's a whole process on how to seek asylum. I think you have to apply for it and stuff like that. So now getting into Canada as refugees seeking asylum, definitely there are still some other processes you have to go through and all of that. But at least there's supposed to be some form of accommodation in shelters for these people. So imagine when they got there to find out that there's no shelter for them. They say all the shelters are filled up and then they are sleeping on the streets.
LGBTQ refugees fleeing violence in Africa are left sleeping on Canada's streets. We're here outside of the City of Toronto Referral and Assessment Centre. That's where refugee claimants come from all over the world just to get settled and get shelter space. But for dozens of African migrants specifically arriving to the City of Toronto, they're being shut out of shelters and being forced to sleep outside.
I chose Canada, but unfortunately, I'm here for almost 2 weeks. I feel so sad. We expected at least people of Canada, the central government, whatever it called, to welcome us.
Some of the African migrants have been forced to sleep outside this building for up to a month. This includes many in the LGBTQ community, fleeing from persecution from countries like Uganda, where the government has just enacted capital punishment and long prison terms for queer individuals.
I was accused of promoting homosexuality in Uganda when I was found doing an outreach for my fellow LGBTQ individuals. That is when police started hunting for me. I decided to leave the country to settle for Canada. In Uganda, being an LGBTQ person is really, really punishable, and you're liable to life imprisonment, you're liable to being killed.
Actually, why I'm here, it's because we were caught back with my partner. You don't live openly back home. It means you either have to be an outcast, you have to be stoned to death, you have to be flogged naked around the village, and you have to be humiliated, and you are rejected.
But after fleeing to Canada, some have ended up sleeping on the streets for months. This is because of infighting between levels of government, with the City of Toronto claiming they have no shelter space, and the federal government maintaining that they provide hundreds of millions of dollars to support refugees. The advocates say that they're being used as political pawns as days drag on outside during a summer of extreme weather, and that they're also facing racism in the face of over 120,000 Ukrainian refugees that were taken in by Canada and housed.
This is one of the wealthiest cities in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and this is how we're treating people. To see people fleeing traumatic situations, having their human rights violated so egregiously, we should be ashamed of ourselves.
Their dreams are shattered. If you could only, like offer an olive branch, for us to stand again, be it housing, we shall contribute to this great country.
I have a health condition I mentioned earlier called sickle cell, and I also have history of pneumonia. So I was rushed to the hospital in the morning yesterday. Most times I can't even afford my medications anymore. I'm going to fight to the end, to my last breath, because going home is not an option. That would instantly kill my mom. I rather appeal to the government that I should be killed and my organs donated to people who need it than going back home.
So it's been causing a lot of outrage. These people are still sleeping on the streets, men, women, children. They're basically just surviving on the good graces of good Samaritans. Some of these Canadians who are, providing them with food and water and the basic necessities that they need.
People who fled their homelands only to find themselves homeless here. There is still no clear solution from government, but today members of the community are coming forward to help. CTV's Allison Hurst is live on Peter near Richmond with the details. Allison.
This has been an ongoing issue for weeks. People, asylum seekers, refugees sleeping here on the streets just outside of a city building. As all the levels of government argue over who must pay to house refugees, a Toronto businessman is pledging to take it on himself.
We're making phone calls to every landlord in the city. You have a space, let us know, right? I know your worries. It's your building. We can deal with it. I heard there was 3 pregnant women. This is unacceptable. This is a shame on us, honestly, to be able to think about it. 3 pregnant women sleeping on the street in our city.
At the same time, there are growing calls by advocates for Mayor Olivia Chow to fire the city's general manager of Shelter Support and Housing Administration if he does not resign over this. Mohammed Faki says it could take a number of days, maybe up to 5, to secure the beds, but they are making the calls right now, calling anyone who has perhaps a room at their place, university dorms, anywhere where someone could sleep and put their head down at night as they wait for their documents and papers to come through. He says they will be paid and fundraising is underway.
So I actually saw videos of some black people in some prominent positions who came out to speak on this issue.
Canada's first black MP came to speak out.
This is not the Canada that we're building. This is not the Canada that speaks about diversity.
And so did Ontario's first black MPP.
We have black people. Let me be clear. Black people sleeping on the street. Women trying to cover themselves adequately while they sleep. And I must tell you, I am offended.
Dozens of asylum seekers have been sleeping at this busy city corner since Toronto's shelters started turning them away. There is simply no room. They were referred to federal programs instead. But this is the result.
If we were not blacks, would we have been treated this way? No. That is the big question that we need to ask ourselves.
On doing my research, I discovered this video.
Some breaking news. We're following the Trudeau government announcing it will give the City of Toronto close to $100 million to address an ongoing refugee housing crisis in the city. For weeks, dozens of refugees, mainly from Africa, have been camped out on sidewalks in Toronto. They're caught in the middle of a funding battle between the city, the province, and the federal government over who is going to pay for their needs and accommodations. Toronto's shelters are at capacity. They have been turning away refugees since June. The city is maintaining it needs more funding from Ottawa in order to better support the refugees. The federal government saying this new funding should be enough to cover the cost of housing for people in Toronto.
Toronto's share of this funding will be close to $100 million. More like $97 million is where I expect this to land. Our modeling demonstrates this should more than cover the cost of interim housing for the people who are currently being denied access to the shelter system by the City of Toronto. To the extent that they have data that demonstrates that they're not conflating refugees and asylum seekers, some of whom benefit from federal support, others who don't, we're of course happy to take those calls. But it's really important that people understand that refugees who come through federal programs where we have made a decision to commit ourselves to supporting these people are actually receiving supports now.
From that video, you can see that it suggests that now that these immigrants are in their country, there is now a problem about who is going to foot the bill of taking care of these people and getting them settled into society, getting them integrated into society. How do they get their papers? Who is going to fund all the expenses? Is it going to be the province? Is it going to be the city? Or is it going to be the federal government? So that is the issue. And because of that, these people are there in those harsh conditions. Now, a lot of people have also come out to say that this has to do with racism, that it is because these refugees in question are black, specifically African, but essentially black people, that they are being treated this way. especially because they have a similar situation to compare, which is when the Ukrainians came to Canada seeking asylum because of the war that was going on. So people are coming out to talk about how the Ukrainians were basically treated so differently and treated better than these African refugees. They even went further to talk about how it's not just black people, it's all people of color that get this kind of inhumane treatment or not treated as good as the Ukrainians, just as it suggests in this video.
Why are countries more accepting of Ukrainian refugees than those from the Middle East and Africa? The EU voted to give Ukrainian refugees temporary residency, but this is unprecedented. Refugees fleeing other crises haven't received the same warm welcome. Just last year, when Afghans started fleeing after the Taliban took over, Austria suggested setting up centers near Afghanistan that would make it easier to deport refugees from Europe. Poland also wouldn't let in thousands of refugees from Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, leaving them trapped in a forest near the border. A few years ago, Hungary's prime minister said migrants pose security and terror risks. Now he's saying Hungary will rise to the challenge to help Ukraine. We're seeing the same double standard in the way some media outlets have covered this war, and how black and brown refugees are facing more challenges than white Ukrainians when trying to flee.
I actually did my research and I found out that the Ukrainians actually got some benefits that I'm not seeing being given to these refugees right now. Some got financial assistance, some also got assistance by the government in finding employment, just like you can see in these articles on the screen right now. I encourage you to actually do your own research to find out more about that. But there is a stark difference between the treatment of the Ukrainian refugees to these African refugees. So anybody who believes that the treatment of these African refugees has some element of racism to it, I cannot argue with them. So now another thing that I uncovered on doing research is that these African refugees may just be used as some form of political pawns. Now what I mean is, when I checked the comment section of some of these videos, I saw a lot of comments by Canadians. I'm going to be leaving some of their comments on the screen. Most of these Canadians were complaining about how they do not support their borders being open to these refugees because they have so much to deal with in their country. A lot of people are homeless, they've not taken care of their own problems, and they heavily criticized the action of their Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on basically opening the doors of Canada to these refugees.
Report: PM Justin Trudeau is urging the LGBTQ community from other countries to seek refuge here in Canada because we accept everyone. Wrong. That's not why he wants them here. For anyone who hasn't seen it by now, there's a mass migration crisis going on in our country right now. We are taking in absolutely anyone and everyone who wants to be here because this man right here is hated by all the people of Canada. He has oppressed Canadians ever since his time in office. He has no respect for our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. He is turning our country into a banana republic, and he needs vulnerable people to come on over who doesn't understand his narcissistic games anymore, so they will vote to keep the tyrant in power.
Now, I cannot speak on Canadian politics, but this is basically what a lot of the Canadians in the comment section of those videos were saying, as you're going to be seeing on the screen. I don't know this for real, so this is all allegedly, okay? Don't quote me anywhere. So if truly there's some form of ulterior motive for which the Africans were being let into Canada, I guess with time we will know. But really what rubs me the wrong way is, why are these people living on the streets? If there was no provision for you to take in refugees in your country, why did you ask them to seek asylum in your country? And then for our brothers and sisters that are going, I understand you wanting to leave if that's going to guarantee your safety and your life, if you're being threatened wherever you are. But I think we just have to be careful because not all that glitters is gold. Bear in mind that you are still a black person. So if you're going to be seeking asylum anywhere, if you're going to be going anywhere, traveling anywhere in the world, bear in mind that your skin color would always determine how you're treated. That is the harsh truth. So let's all be careful. And this actually also goes to Africans that are migrating, not necessarily because of LGBTQ, but for any other reason, migrating for a better life or whatever. You might be running from one form of oppression to another. So don't think it's going to be all rosy. This is why you have to do your research before you go. Find out the life people like you live when they get there. Is it conducive for black people? Is it conducive for people of color? Because you might go there to those countries and have it worse than you did back home. And we definitely know that some Africans now may be wanting to seek asylum that are not really LGBTQ members. They might just use this as a whole backstory just to leave their respective countries. And I really hope it's not that bad and people don't get that desperate. But we know it's definitely a possibility. So at this point, I'm just going to go right ahead and play some people's reactions to this whole situation.
LGBTQ refugees fleeing violence in Africa are left sleeping on Canada's streets. We're here.
Africans, are you not happy? This is what should-be-goated fools have always wanted. I believe you should be happy now that you've sent them out of their countries and they became refugees in other countries. It is not as if they don't have their own homeland. Some of you don't even want to travel to this country because of the racism there. But now, you've given them no choice but to seek refugees, seek asylum in a country that doesn't even want them. So I believe you guys should be happy now. You should be dancing and rejoicing for sending people that their life has nothing to do with you out of their homeland. So you guys should clap for yourself. You've done yourself good. But I believe your guilt, your conscience, rejoice.
In refugees
The church
in
is
Canada.
Man in TikTok, man in. But let's get down to it. Let's crack about it. I feel like I could speak to these issues because I'm black, I'm a Canadian, and I've been homeless in this bitch. So I'm gonna speak on it. First things first. I want you guys to really take in the mantra for Canada. It is the Great White North. Now, I know some of you are gonna be like, well, the white is just mean for the mountaintops and the ice glaciers and the snow. Bitch, stop playing in my face, okay? We know a dog whistle when we hear one. It's the Great White North because of y'all. We know that. Also, I'd just like to recap on a little bit of recent history, shall we? Recent history as in last week, when all of our NATO leaders, right? So, you know, the United Nations military arm, NATO, these are your leaders. I don't know about you, but I don't see one black face. I don't know. I mean, I see my prime minister who used to wear blackface, but I don't actually see a black person there. So I don't know, do with that as you will. And then we're going to talk about where my prime minister is actually sending our federal dollars right now. In droves, like hundreds of millions. I think we're even past the billion point. Ukraine. Do you remember what Ukraine did to black people? Do you remember? Like recent history, you know, not, when was it? February 24th. And it was February 24th. This year this article was done, but this war has been going on for over a year now, so do the math. This is what's been happening. And you know, our prime minister has his own website, pm.gac.ca, where you can go and find out what the f he's gonna do with your federal dollars, all right? So bringing it back home here in Toronto, I am sorry, black people who claim to be a part of the LGBTQ that were in Uganda that had to flee on refugee status and thought you were coming here to a better life, baby. I'm sorry. They lied to you, baby. They lied to you. And I know that some of you are not actually gay. You're not a part of the community. You just use that so you can get your refugee status. I get it. You want to go to another place and build your life where you're free from all of the white people that war. I get it. But baby, you left oppression to come back to oppression. I don't know what y'all thought it was. We're talking about a global structure of white supremacy. Use your brains, y'all. Use your brains.
Refugees arriving in Toronto are finding themselves having to sleep on the street after funding for a housing program ran out. Welcome to Canada. Let me guess, you didn't read the disclaimer before coming? The Canada you thought you were coming to no longer exists. And who can you thank for that? The person who invited you to come here in the first place so you can cast your vote for him.
So I wanted to find out what more Africans were saying about this situation. So I went to the comment section of this particular video, and in this video you can see that there are a lot of the refugees who are stranded on the streets of Canada who came out to give their experience and explained why they had to flee from their home countries. And of course, you guys can see the comments. I'm just going to be posting the comments that a lot of Africans made. A lot of these Africans believe that a lot of these people are lying and that they are not necessarily LGBTQ members. Now, we cannot say for real if they are or if they are not, but one thing that I know is that it is definitely going to happen that a lot of people who are not really LGBTQ are going to want to use this as an excuse. And then you can see some of them talking about being whipped in the streets and paraded naked and all of that. And I cannot speak for other countries, but in Nigeria, I've not really seen any open persecution or humiliation of these people. A lot of our people may be homophobic to a large extent, but we don't really go attacking these LGBTQ people. So I cannot speak for other African countries, but for Nigeria, I know that those extreme situations of LGBTQ people being attacked are a rarity. But if you're an African living in Africa watching this video right now, please drop in the comment section, are the LGBTQ people in your countries being openly attacked? Are their lives in danger? Are they being publicly humiliated and harassed? And is there any violence directed towards them on like a daily basis? Please let us know in the comment section. So you guys have heard everything. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Did you hear about this? What is your take on this? And what do you think about LGBTQ people having to flee their countries to other countries, no matter how harsh the conditions are? Please let me know in the comment section. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and share as well. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.